And I had to take a break from Twitter a couple weeks ago because it was just getting so disheartening. People that I actually respected for a long time, really coming out as transphobic, or at least saying transphobic things. Um, not even listening to reason, not even listening to, um, the other side of the argument. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to be back. It's been a couple weeks since I did that awesome interview with Marcus. Yeah, quite a bit's happening in the world right now, especially in the trans world. There's a lot going on, so um, I kind of want to unpack that and see. I was really disappointed because I had an amazing guest lined up last week. Um, it would have been a perfect opportunity. Um, her, she had just had an interview canceled because of what was deemed by the woke mob as transphobic. It would have been a perfect timing to talk about so many of these issues that were going on, and I never heard back from her. So you guys know I'm not about calling people out and naming names, so I'm not going to do that. Um, but at this point, it's hard for me to really care about their issues when they had this platform to be able to come and talk to a trans person about what they're going through being called transphobic. So that's where I'm at with that. And then last Thursday, I had dinner with a friend. She texted me on Saturday, said her father-in-law had tested positive for COVID, and so she had been around him, and so at the same time I kind of developed a cold, so it was kind of odd. I tested negative on Tuesday, so thankfully for that. Still hoping she gets better because she did test positive. So like I said, we have a lot to unpack right now. First of all, the guest was not Ariel. I know Ariel's kind of been in the mix, and I'm going to talk about her here in a second. But it wasn't her. She has an open invitation on this channel anytime she wants. She knows this. I've just never specifically asked her to be on this channel. But let's kind of talk about why she's been in hot water lately with, again, trans activists like she usually is. And it has to do with the Elliot Page situation. And if you don't know what's going on with the Elliot Page situation, consider yourself kind of lucky. I think most people don't really care, don't really follow, what's going on in pop culture and stuff like this. So the actress formerly known as Elliot Page came out as a trans man, and I also think they said that, but their pronouns are he, they, which I don't get that, but it's not for me to understand. It's fine. I think most of the community kind of, and Ariel even said this in her video. I think she said it best.
If he is truly trans, good for fucking him.
But where she got in trouble, which I don't agree with, is what I just did. Apparently, she dead named him, and said, used his previous name. I hate the term dead naming. Even as a trans person myself, I don't understand. I know why they say it, but nobody died. I didn't die. I still have stuff in my house that has my old name on it. It's my old name, so it's who I was, and nothing's gonna change that. I can't erase that part of my life, and nor would I want to. I think people want to get upset just to get upset. I think context matters sometimes. When you're talking about somebody and you're putting them in the video, the easiest thing to do is say, who they were, what they went by before, and now what their new name is. How else are you going to explain that to somebody? Like if somebody was explaining it to a friend I graduated high school with and said, "Oh, you know this person? Well, then now they go by Sarah," and they transition. There's nothing wrong with that. The context that so many people have put that in is absolutely fine in my opinion. Um, it it's gotten so ridiculous that that's what we're getting upset at, and you'll see here in a little bit. I'm not so happy right now. I'm kind of getting discouraged by seeing some of the gender critical crowd. So I want to talk a little bit about that in this video. But the thing is okay, Elliot Page comes out as trans. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it stopped being a big deal a long time ago. Trans people are here. We're here to stay. People should feel comfortable coming out as who they are and everything like that. I will just say it's kind of ironic that when he was her, was a lesbian, used to be a lesbian, raved, would rail against straight men, and now she's become one. Which is an interesting thing. It's kind of like in The Dark Knight when Two-Face had said to Batman, you either die the hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And she's become what she has decided was the villain a long time ago. So I just think it's kind of ironic. Good for him. I don't think anymore you can... It's not new. It's not... For a celebrity to come out, it's not... they're not heroes coming out. They're being who they are. But people want to place them up on there. Yes, representation is good. Now, what will also be interesting coming up here in the future is, what happens to his roles? Like, what roles is he now allowed to play? Because if the woke crowd likes to get mad anytime a straight woman or just a woman or in general plays a trans character, or a straight person plays a gay character. They like to get angry about that. So now is he only allowed to play roles that are trans men? I don't know. I don't think so because he's got a TV show. I think it's a TV show or movie where he's playing a female. So we'll see how that goes over with the crowd. I think he has more to worry about with the trans activist crowd than what he's going to have with, conservatives and everything like that. I just, nobody really cares. When somebody like this comes out, they want to make it seem like everybody is transphobic for even acknowledging who they were, or to say that it's not brave. I mean, it is. It's an amazing thing when somebody, understands who they are. And I have no reason to believe that he's not trans or anything like that. So I shouldn't even be spending this much time on it. So we're gonna go to some of the other stuff that we've kind of seen happen here recently. So in the UK, there was a court case brought on by a detransitioner called Keira Bell. Now, she had started taking puberty blockers at 16, which I didn't understand. I don't know how that all works with that, but she had started taking puberty blockers at 16 to transition to be a boy, and then started taking testosterone. I guess had a double mastectomy at 20, and then detransitioned a few years later. The whole reason behind the suit that she had brought was because she wasn't questioned by doctors along the way. In her case, I honestly, I feel for her. But when you're 16 and then 20, personal responsibility comes into play. Somebody who's 16 years old still should know better. We allow 16-year-olds to drive. In many countries around the world, they allow 16-year-olds to drink. So we expect them to have this level of maturity to make these types of decisions. We also know that after the age of 16, the detransition rate does drop below 2%. So they were part of the very vast minority, like the very small minority that detransition after 16. And they had started taking they didn't even take puberty blockers before 16. So the whole case goes down to, and what ended up basically being the outcome of the case essentially says that a 14-year-old, somebody that's below the age of 14, will most likely not have the ability to informed consent to transition or to take puberty blockers. Now, what I've heard some people say they are not able to consent alone, which, yeah, no 14-year-old can really make those types of decisions, life-altering decisions, alone. But now after the court case, it says that the only way that a person will be able to get on puberty blockers, basically under the age of 16, is with a court's approval. Now, that is a dangerous precedent, in my opinion. Again, this is in the UK. I live in America. But the thing is to have the government determining who can do this and who's not going to be able to do this is dangerous, in my opinion. It's like you don't control your life until you turn 16. You don't control your life until you turn 18. We've seen the same stuff happen even in the Charlie Gard case, to where parents do not control their children's lives until they turn 16. This should not be a decision for the government. It should be a decision for a child, their doctor, and their parent to make together. Again, like I've said in the last video, we have to protect doctors from making tough choices and tough recommendations. But this is not a decision that should be put into the courts, and it's not something that should be banned. Like I talked about with Marcus, DIY hormones are an issue. There's a lot of, I don't know how many stories I've seen on Reddit, stuff like this, where parents come on there and they go, hey, I just found these pills in my kid's stuff, and then it turns out to be HRT pills. They don't know how they got them, but then so they're on them, and then how did they come off of them? I would rather that person go see a doctor, had the doctor and their parents involved, and not be taking DIY, because DIY just leads to, it's dangerous. I mean, it's quite honestly, it's very dangerous to do. So I think the ruling makes sense in some ways, but in other ways, I think it's going to hurt trans people. I think it's going to hurt. I think it doesn't do anything for that 40% suicide, was it the suicide ideation rate? Which is one of the concerns that I have, and it's one of the issues that I, again, completely go on the other side of the gender critical crowd with this. So that's kind of what brought me to, be at odds with the gender critical community these last couple weeks. And I had to take a break from Twitter a couple weeks ago because it was just getting so disheartening. People that I actually respected for a long time, really coming out as transphobic, or at least saying transphobic things. Not even listening to reason, not even listening to, the other side of the argument. They have this viewpoint that is not good. And again, even still, like, the bathroom and locker room issues, which me and Marcus, I kind of said then, is it seems like it's settled. Like, here, it's settled at least. I start to realize that, the basis that a lot of these people have against, trans people using the women's locker room or, even the bathroom, it is very transphobic. And it was really disheartening to kind of see that myself, because their premise is basically that men, men are more like are so much more likely to, um, you know, commit sexual assault than women. And to see that they don't differentiate men, and all they see trans women as men, and that's really what I started to notice. It was disheartening, because a lot of what happens with biological men is that testosterone has something to play when it comes to biological men. Um, Trans women are not the same as biological men. And when you ask for data to show that trans people are the same as biological men, they can't produce it. And then they start giving you these, well, nobody's studying it, or, these studies have been blocked. Well, until you can produce that evidence, I'm sorry, it's not the case. You like you can look at anecdotal data and see, yeah, it happens, but it happens rarely. Now, I'm not changing what I said to Marcus or what I said in the video about California. Like, self ID is always wrong, you know. But self ID is completely different than somebody that's actually going through the steps of transitioning. To look at self ID and a transsexual, as the same, is also wrong. But that's not the way that some of these gender critical people are putting it. And so now I'm kind of in this limbo space where I see what's going on, and it's hard for me to even come out on this video, because I don't agree with trans activists, but I don't agree with the gender critical crowd, and so many people that I've been following and seeing, kind of make some of these statements lately, and it's really disheartening. So I don't know where I stand on that. I don't. I'm reforming some of my views. Like I said, I'm not gonna go and say self ID is right. I'm not gonna go and say, a pre-op trans woman should be in a woman's prison. I'm not gonna say a post-op trans woman should be in a woman's prison. I'm not gonna go out and say that women's shelters should accept trans women either, because we have LGBT shelters that can help with that. When it comes to bathroom issues, I've been very steadily at this. I am very much in the regards that every business should be allowed to determine what their rules are. And so I've asked the question multiple times, to some of these people that want to ban, trans women from going in any space, how they would enforce it. Because, and not as a you can't stop me type thing, but it's more, if you're going to propose a ban on something, how are you going to enforce it? Because, and especially enforce it without hurting biological women, in the same breath. Because you realize there are a lot of biological women who get mistaken for men or trans people all the time. So what do you do to stop them? And realize that transsexuals have been using the ladies' room for years. And when the stats show that, 58% of women in the UK and 64% of women in the US support, trans people, using those areas. So you're talking about a minority of women that, or people in general, that disagree with transsexuals using those spaces. But again, I think the best solution is for each individual business to decide. Because when you say you add a third space, so go to a restaurant, just go to the lowest level, go to an individual restaurant. How are you going to make them add a third space? How are you going to force them to add a third space for trans people? You can't do it. So let that business decide. That's the best, fairest way possible. It's the most freedom loving way possible. Which I think, again, it doesn't seem to be as big of an issue here in the U.S. In fact, my experience has not been this in real life. In real life, women seem to want to grab you and kind of pull you into the club when you're transitioning, not push you away. I've never had anybody say anything negative. Like I said, in fact, I meet people all the time that are pulling me into the club. So it's all online, which is kind of why I had to separate myself for a couple of days just seeing this, because again, it was disheartening. And I didn't want to do it anymore. Now, going to the last point, and it just came out. I still haven't even read the bill yet, but Hawaii Mama, Tulsi Gabbard, has introduced a bill, I guess more so just to reinstate or have them kind of go back and talk about Title IX. So it's a bill to, not have biological men competing in women's sports. So yeah, like trans women should not be competing in women's sports. And to allow it is a violation of Title IX. Title IX kind of set out those guidelines so that women had a fair shot, or had equal opportunity to compete in their own sports and everything like that. But trans women competing in women's sports, and I have my video that I did a couple months ago now, as well as my articles. It violates Title IX. Plain and simple. So Tulsi Gabbard has introduced that bill to kind of bring that back into effect, and she's been getting hit hard by trans activists as well, which is interesting because she is a Democrat, bringing that stuff, coming out with that stuff. And I don't mind. We all know where I stand on trans women in sports. I think this is a step to do exactly what I said. We kind of got to get a hold on this before we can explore the options of when somebody transitions. But yeah. So I think she's doing a good thing. I think she's gonna get a lot of heat for it, but we'll see where we stand. We'll see where this is kind of a litmus test, right, for where the country actually stands, and not just where trans activists and the two sides actually stand on it. It'll be interesting. With that, it's been real. I'm gonna try to get more of these videos, put these videos together, start coming out again, back out weekly, and can't wait. And if I haven't talked too much about this on here, but I want you guys to know, go to subscribe on my Twitch channel. I DJ on Twitch. I'm DJing like 3 to 4 times a week. I play mostly electronic music. So Mondays I usually play all house. I play just about everything on Saturdays. So it's Saturday with Sarah. But thanks for joining in. Click like, subscribe to this channel. That helped me out a lot, and just share everything with your friends. Love to hear what you guys thought of this video. So I look forward to your replies.